So you need to know, for example, each of these automatically. So 30 degrees is how many radians? Can anybody tell me how 30 degrees is how many radians? Pi over 6, correct. These are ones you have to know. 45 degrees is what radians? Pi over 4, nice. What about 60 degrees? Pi over 3. What about 90 degrees? Yay, pi over 2. What about pi? How many degrees is that?
180.
It is pi, so it's 180 degrees. Nice. And what about 3 pi over 2? That would be all the way around to there. So what is that? 270 degrees. You have to know your basic trig values cold. They have to be automatic. Not knowing them and trying to do trig is like trying to read a sentence without actually knowing what the letters sound like, okay? If you don't know your basic trig values on the unit circle, it's going to be really, 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 really Zoolander style hard for you to do this, okay?
6 letters.
Toa.
That's 9.
That's what I mean, right there. So yes, it's 9 letters, but it's 6 really important ones. So sine, what does sine mean? Opposite over hypotenuse. What does cosine mean? Adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. So where are those 3 sides? Where are those 3 sides? Where are those 3 sides? This is the adjacent side, that's the opposite side, and that's the hypotenuse. So if you remember those things, you can come up with each of these values. You can come up with each of these values. Is everybody with me so far? In a unit circle, what does h equal? In a unit circle, what does h equal? 1. So when we say sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, in this case, the opposite side, that is the definition of the y-coordinate, and that's the definition of the x-coordinate. So you're doing all these fractions, but what's y over 1? Well, that's y. X over 1 is just x. There's an invisible 1 right there. But that's where that word comes into play. You need to remember that cold. You have to remember that relationship. You have to remember that relationship. Okay, so this is where you guys get to help me out a lot. You guys get to help me out a lot because I am not very good at graphing trig functions. So you're going to help me out a bunch. So graphing sine and graphing cosine in radians. We love radians. Unless otherwise specified, we're going to stay in radians. Radians are a lot more fun to work with. Degrees are not super fun. But we're going to stay in radian land, especially for this. So if we were to graph this, you need to remember some basic things. So don't look at these words right now, but do you remember kind of where sine and cosine start? Where does sine start? What's sine of 0? What's sine of 0? 0. Sine of 0 is 0. Sine of 0 is 0. So where does this, does sine cross the origin?
Yes.
Yes, it does. So when theta is 0, the radius, it is 0. So we have 0. So this is sine. So we'll say sine is red here. So does it go up or down from there? Do you remember if it goes up or down? Sine, does it go up or down? It goes up. And how high up does it get? It gets up to 1. Actually, both of these only get to 1, right? So the highest they get is 1. And what's the lowest they get? Negative 1. Sine of what is 1? How far up do you have to go? What angle measure has sine of 1? Pi over 2 or pi? Pi over 2. Sine of what is 1? The sine of what is 1? Pi over 2. Yeah, it is. Sine of pi over, you're correct. So we go up to here. Oh, now we're up to here, so pi over 2 is 1. So then what's sine of pi? What's sine of pi? Do you remember, Connor? What's sine of pi? Sine. Cosine looks really similar, but it starts in a different place. What is cosine of 0? What's cosine of 0? What's cosine of 0? Cosine of 0 is 1. So where does it start at the origin?
No, it starts at 1.
Yeah, it starts at 0, 1, up there. And then what is cosine of pi over 2? What's cosine of pi over 2? 0. So it goes down here, goes down here. So it looks like this. Do we have an idea? Oh, it goes up. Does it mirror this kind of nicely? It sure does. So what's it look like? It's going to go whoop, like this, like that, and it goes up to there. Nice. Nice. So there's cosine. So that's what they look like right there. They oscillate between -1 and +1. Period, amplitude, and midline. Period, amplitude, and midline. Can you remember what those 3 things are?
Yes.
What's the what is the period of a function?
How long it takes to get from, say it was on 0.
Yeah.
How long it takes to get back to 0.
Back to 0? Is that it's almost the right. It's really
From the
close.
right
So
direction.
hold on. From the right there it is.
Yeah,
From the right direction. So for
so
example, here's sine, right?
Yeah.
Oh look, we started at 0, right? It might not be 0, by the way, because we can move this up, right? It can maybe not cross through 0, but let's say it is 0. Is the period pi?
No.
No, because it's rising and then falling. You need to get it so that it's coming back up again. How is it approaching the same way? So it's one oscillation, one complete rotation around. So it's going to be 0 to what? 2 pi. So the period for each of these is what? When we say the period, what do we say the period is for both of these? It's the same for both. It is, what distance does the function have to travel? 2 pi, yes. The period is 2 pi. What's the amplitude? What does that mean? What's the amplitude of these two functions? They're the same. What's the amplitude mean? Yeah. The height from the distance from the midline to the highest point, right? So assuming the midline is in the middle, it could be to the lowest point, right?
Yeah.
Either way. So the midline is the middle line, right? So what is the amplitude for both of these? 1. And what is the midline for this one? What's the midline?
0.
Y equals 0. They're all the same for this. Now, bounded between these two right here. Nice. Where does sine usually start? Where does sine usually start? So if we had it shifted it left or right, it would start at the origin. So in this case, it would start at 0, 5. But where do we start it now? Where do we start it now? Say, okay, we're going to take this. I'm going to copy too much here, right? I could take this, and I could copy, and I could go paste. I could take this, and then where can I put this?
Yeah, exactly.
Right there. And then I could do it again. And I could take it, and I could put it. Hey, my curve was pretty good. There we go. I'm proud of myself. That's okay. So this is 2 cosine of 2 times x minus what? 2 times x minus what?
0.
Minus 4. It's minus 0, right. So in this case, what's the amplitude? 2, right? So the a value is 2. What's the c value in this case? 0. It doesn't shift left or right. What's the d value? Negative 4. In this case, what is the k value? What's out front of the x? What's the k value? 2. So in that case, what does that mean the period is? 2 pi over 2, which is indeed pi. Exactly. So where's the midline? Can somebody who hasn't spoken, where's the midline? Where's the midline, Gabby? Where's the midline? If d is negative 4, what's the midline going to be? Is y equals negative 4. I think we have the same scale on this one. Yeah, so we have the same scale. So y equals negative 4 is right here. Exciting. Okay. What else do we know here? C being 0. So C tells us about, what is C? The horizontal. Oh, so this doesn't shift horizontally. This doesn't shift horizontally. What's the amplitude for this thing? 2. So what's the highest it can go up to? Negative 2. And what's the lowest it can go to? Negative 6. So we have y equals negative 2, y equals negative 4, and y equals negative 6. Where does cosine usually start? What point does cosine start at? What's cosine of 0? What's cosine of 0? So when you plug 0 into this, what's cosine of 2 times 0? Try again. Strike 1 and strike 2. What's cosine of 0? 1. What's 1 times 2?
2.
What's 2 minus 4?
Negative 2.
So where does this function start?
Negative 2.
Yeah, it starts at 0, negative 2. It starts right there, everybody. Exactly. There we go. Try again. Try again. And then glue this on right here. And how do we do? I think pi over 6. So if you remember your unit circle, this tells you that theta is equal to pi over 6 because you remember your unit circle. You remember your triangles. This one right here, we have to do a little bit of algebra first. Nick, everybody stand up and just look at the board, everybody. You need to stop working and you need to actually... So we have 4 cosine, 3 pi plus pi over 3 equals negative what?
3.
Negative 3.
Divide by 4.
Divide by 4. So cosine of this thing is going to equal what?
Negative 3.
Is that a legal cosine value? Can cosine be negative 3/4?
Yeah.
Yeah, because cosine is between what and what?
1 and negative 1.
1 and negative 1. So that's valid so far. So what do we know? Cosine inverse of
Negative 3/4.
is equal to 3 theta plus pi over 3. So cosine inverse of negative 3 over 4 minus what? Pi over 3 is equal to 3 theta. Thank you. So what does theta equal? 1/3 cosine inverse of negative 3/4 minus pi over 3. Could you type that into your calculator? You can now type that into your calculator. Okay,